Next is the motion. Motion is being made to authorize removal of all Japanese barberry shrubs at Centennial Circle. Replacement of these shrubs be contingent upon available funding in this year's budget. May have to go into 2023. He's got on the nasty plant list that recently came out. Dan, if you want to expound on that.
No, but it's just because there was a plan that was approved by council for the new plantings that are gonna be coming in spring of this year. And that's a kind of a modification to the plan, so, and they're not very fun to maintain anyway, so it'll be a bonus to our staff. They will appreciate that.
I thought there was something for budget to get rid of these and add something new.
They were gonna be spaced, they were gonna like be blocked where you'd have those, and then the new plantings, so it would be total removal as opposed to just about 50% removal from the formally approved plan.
What's going in there now, or what's gonna go in and take care of Japanese?
There's a whole nother plan.
Yeah.
That if you get with Michelle, she can show you the plan.
That was already approved by infrastructure
Right.
and council last year.
Okay, someone, are you?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, second,
Just get some cautious out there.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so be it. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Park and Shade Tree Commission report. Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So be it. I think we just hit history there. Economic Development. Mayor Fred.
The Economic Development Committee met on January 27th. We had an ongoing conversation in regards to the changing retail environment that our commercial area has been facing for several years. Just trying to figure out the best way that we can recommend to property owners how we may go forward. We have some ongoing conversations with West Reading in regards to doing some joint promotional efforts. And we had an executive session to discuss a matter of litigation. And I would ask then that we make a motion to approve the report.
So moved. Second.
A motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so be it. Thank you. Mr. Mayor. Fire and Police Committee. Fred.
Let's go through the motions. There was a motion to authorize the utilization of excess fire department FEMA grant funds, the amount of $14,054.14 to purchase 3 sets of turnout gear for the Wyoming Fire Department at a cost of $12,701.34. The borough's responsibility would be $1,270.13, and the remaining grant funds of $2,622.93 would go back to Spring Township.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brennan?
Yes.
Councilmember Jarrett?
Yes.
Councilmember Barnett?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogel?
Yes.
Councilmember Stenko?
Aye.
And Council First Vice President James.
Yes.
Okay, next motion involved a request to contract with Wyoming Police to work with some upcoming Route 22 PennDOT repair and construction projects. And after discussion,
No, we're not.
and input from the chief, there was a motion to recommend that council deny providing contracted police traffic control services for that project. I will make that motion to deny.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deny PennDOT's request. Question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, you heard the chief mention earlier that there were, did an analysis around the pool area in Wyoming Hills, a request for crosswalks to control where persons cross the street for safety purposes. And the chief, you want to add anything there?
No, I think I talked about it, it's not really, there isn't really any downside to doing it, in my opinion, gives the residents in that area safer places to cross. There's no PennDOT requirements that you have to worry about, and there's no flashing lighting there.
And there's no real cost as we done.
It's just the painting of the lines by,
I did talk to Jeremy about installing the curb cuts for the crosswalk, and he said we can do that in-house. So there will be that negligible cost
We can do that when?
in-house
Oh,
sometime this year.
so I'll make that motion and install 2 crosswalks on both sides of Denver Drive.
Second. Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, the next was discussion of one-way street sign installations on Coley, I believe. There are 2 businesses that have parking lots that exit onto one-way streets, but there's no signage indicating that they're one-way. So Chief is recommending that we install one-way street signs to designate the people leaving the lots, and that just the direction of traffic is on that area of Coley.
So. We have a motion and a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Next was a motion to approve a handicap parking space request for 401 Oley Street. I'll make that motion.
Motion and a second to approve handicap parking space at 401 Olney Street. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so be it.
Okay, you also heard the chief mention earlier in his report, there's a discussion of a statement of concurrence, which is essentially a letter agreement, if you will, with Perry Township. They're asking us to concur in the fact that they're using a radio frequency that is just very, very slightly off of ours. And a letter of concurrence is required by,
the letter of concurrence will be delivered to the FCC.
FCC, because of the closeness of the radio frequencies. And so that a motion is necessary for the signing of statement of concurrence as an agreement with Perry for them to be responsible for any changes in costs associated with the interference of radio frequencies. And it's contingent upon the borough solicitor preparing appropriate language to clarify the meaning of level of interference and adding other favorable contractual provisions.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Question on the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so be it.
And lastly, there's a motion needed to table, approve, or deny authorizing joint efforts with the West Reading Borough to address noise disruptions from the city of Reading. Chief, you mentioned that in your report, maybe you could just explain briefly to council what that is.
What happens during the warmer months, noise from large parties that are occurring across the river in the city travel across, and it disturbs our residents, and disturbs the residents in West Reading. It's nothing that really we can do about it because it's not happening in our jurisdiction. When those incidents occur, then we notify the city, but how they handle it is how they handle it. So I believe West Reading is looking to send a letter to the city, asking that they do a better job at handling those types of situations, and I guess they're asking for us to join them in the signing of that letter.
Suppose the voice comes from West Reading.
Where we get it is our Berkshire Heights area line, you can hear it coming across the river.
So moved.
down on the
Second.
south
Okay,
side.
we have a motion and a second. Further questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, one last thing, just to bring everyone up to date on Tower 79. We have the 3 letters now, emissions module. The emission modules only work on trucks that have digital gauges. They are not meant for analog gauges such as what we have. Seagrave has offered, and they are replacing all of our gauges with digital gauges. So this emissions module will work. The only thing we have to pay for is labor, which is at a cost of about $1,200. But this needs to be done in order for the, so we can proceed with the sale of the truck. So that's where we stand on this. We're just waiting for Seagrave representatives to come out and install the new digital gauges and the emissions. Okay. Entertain a motion to approve the fire and police report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Finance and admin. Keith.
The Finance and Administration Committee met on February 3rd. We were joined by the investment group of Gerard, who gave us a presentation for the pension funds ending in December 31st, 2021. They also gave a little presentation on some realignment of some funds, moving some things to growth funds versus higher risk funds in light of potential economic downturns. The bottom line is the pension funds are extremely well funded. We're in great shape with pensions for both the police, the fire, and the maintenance group. So they're in real good shape. Our average returns are doing really well, which leads you to the next thing, which is we do need to make the first quarter contribution. Based on where we took the picture in 2020, we were able to dramatically reduce the amount of funding that we were going to have to give to the pension funds and still maintain a very, very high rating. We're at like 93, which is well within what we need. And as Steve pointed out before, we can't go too high or it'll cut back into our funding. So we cut it back. I think last year we were doing like $180,000 a quarter. I think we had to put in like $720,000. This year it looks like we're only going to have to put in somewhere around $300,000 for the entire year. So Phyllis spread that out over the 4 quarters. It looks like our minimum contribution is going to be required at $74,499.50 for the first quarter, and I'll make that motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember Dare?
Yes.
Councilmember Barnett?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogel?
Yes.
Councilmember Stanko?
Aye.
And Council First Vice President Jenks.
Yes.
Phyllis also gave us an update on cash. We ended January. Obviously, January only having 1 month under our belt is too early to tell where anything is. But we ended up with cash with $9.4 million in cash, which was pretty much on budget as where she anticipated us to be. She also mentioned that that the CDs are coming due. We had a 6-month and a 12-month CD. They're paying virtually nothing, but it looks like we're in pretty good shape cash-wise. Phyllis's recommendation is that we consolidate the 2 CDs that became mature and consolidate them into 1 CD of $4 million for a 12-month period at the rate of 0.45%, which is the best thing we can get. But so we're making the motion to council that we approve that transfer consolidation of $4 million at the rate of 0.4.
I'll second.
Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
There was discussion about, we had when they started doing the Fourth Street project, they took out a $5 million bridge loan for that specific project in the event that funding from the state wouldn't come in time to eat into our cash. So they put that in place in order to protect our reserves. As it turned out, the funding for the project came in before it was actually needed, or it came in while the bills were being paid, so we never had to exercise the line of credit for that specific project. The borough isn't allowed to just have an open line of credit. There was discussion at the finance committee meeting, since that line of credit for that specific project is now over, that we look at doing another new tax-free bridge loan, put it in place for future projects, like the Public Works building, like the Stone House, like the stormwater project I looked at. All those projects totaled $7.5 million. However, when we go back and look at those projects, it appears that the funding for them is gonna be coming in sporadically, and best case scenario is we probably won't really need any of that money till sometime next year. So even though we talked about it in finance, as we started looking into these things a little more, it became a sense of urgency because they thought interest rates were gonna go up, as well as in order to do the tax-free initiative, we had to do it quickly with some other public meetings and so on, and it would come with a legal cost of about $10,000. Having some additional discussions with some of the other members of the finance committee, we are actually now thinking that maybe we should put a hold on that and not do it. It just seems like from a financial standpoint, spending $10,000 to put in place some funding that we may or may not need till sometime next year just doesn't seem prudent. What I'm gonna suggest is, rather than making the motion to do this, I'm gonna make a motion to deny this request from the finance committee, but instead put it into place that we kick it back to the finance committee to maybe look for some other options. Analyze maybe a taxable one might be more prudent at a lower cost to initiate, and maybe get some sort of other lock. Even though they were gonna lock it in at 2.5%, it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to put it in place, considering it only has a 2-year term, and we'd be spending $10,000 for potentially using a lower interest money from, let's say, March or April of next year till the end of the year. It just seems like when you start looking at the projects that we have and when they're gonna come to fruition, it probably just doesn't make sense to do it at this time. So I ask that the council allow the finance committee to go back and take another look at this and see if there's another way around this and something that might be more feasible, or just to kick it down the road until next year and take the gamble that interest rates won't be outrageous, because anything we're gonna do depending on what our grant situation is for the public works and some of these other projects, we're probably gonna look at some longer term financing anyway, versus doing this, so I'm just making a motion that we table this recommendation.
You want a table, then it comes back every month again, or do you want this to?
Well, we can deny this and just have
And
finance,
just redo it.
kick it back to finance to have them relook at it.
Okay,
So moved.
we have a motion and a second to deny the request and have this taken back to finance for further review. All those in favor?
Aye.
So just let Phyllis and Pete know that we're just gonna
Peter.
relook.
Yeah, I
I think
have
Peter
it,
would.
so be it.
Michelle, you need permission, you need a motion for you to authorize submission for application. This is another potential grant situation that you can apply for, and you just need permission to do that. Is that what this is?
There's an actual resolution
there's
that
an
has to be
ordinance.
adopted and submitted as well.
Okay.
And that's also not only approving the application, but authorizing Phyllis and I to sign off on any related documents associated with the grant.
Do I have to read that resolution?
Just the
Just the
preamble.
ballpark.
Resolution number 202206, a resolution of the Council of the Borough of Wyomissing, Berks County, Pennsylvania, authorizing official action relating to receiving a statewide local share account grant for the construction of improvements to the Borough Public Works facility. And I'll also make that motion.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
There's a motion required to authorize an additional $115,211.60 for the pole building. When the original estimate was done, it was done based on pre-COVID labor and material costs, and the project came in on the final bid through CoStar significantly higher than what was anticipated. Just for background, this is, all we're doing is reallocating dollars. The Stonehouse and the stormwater sewer project grants from the state were not approved. Therefore, the matching funds that we had set aside for those projects to the tune of $280,000. $280,000 is available for other projects. So it's well within the budget, but we're recommending that we move the $115,211.60 from those projects that we had reserved over to the pole building for the Parks and Recreation Group, so they can move forward with the pole barn, and also make that.
Second.
We have a motion and second, all those in favor? Oh, no,
Roll call.
roll call, excuse that, roll call.
Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember Jarrett?
Yes.
Councilmember Barnett?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogel?
Yes.
Councilmember Stanko?
Aye.
Council First Vice President Jenks?
Yes.
Finance Committee recommended that council approve the wage adjustment rate increases for the various administration people, Borough Secretary, Human Resource Assistant, and Assistant Borough Secretary, and as well as the Borough Receptionist as recommended by the Personnel Committee. And I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
There was also discussion about the American Recovery Plan, of which our budget for last year and this year includes the $556,529. The short story is we're gonna get a total of $1,113,157 through the American Recovery Plan, but the reporting process, anything under 10 million, has become much easier, and we do not need to specifically allocate it to a specific stormwater project or infrastructure project. It can be used as part of our general fund, as long as it's not used for pensions or overtime, that sort of thing, or wages, I think. So, fortunately, it is part of our budget, both the revenue and the expenditures are part of our budget. But we don't have to do as much reporting. Employee, the social media policy?
Yeah, we should approve it.
There was a recommendation to approve the social media policy, which was discussed at the Finance and Administration Committee, and there was a recommendation to council that the social media policy be approved. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So be it.
There was also discussion about recognizing Paul Brass, who you guys know from, he spent like 35 or 40 years between Borough Council and Finance Committee, did a great job for the borough, and spent a lot of time here. And there was discussion about recognizing him with that, who just recently passed away. I think that was it.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Finance and Administration Committee report.
So moved.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, nice job. Planning Commission, Mr. Stanko.
Thank you. Let me start out by saying I'm following in the footsteps of the guy who started the planning commission, releasing around for 35 years. Paul Brass was here forever, so big shoes to fill. At any rate, we had our meeting yesterday, and we had a number of things to cover. Number one, motion is needed to table, approve, or deny granting conditional final plan approval for the Highlands preliminary and final land development plan and accept a fee.
Ron, hold on, you need to amend the agenda. Melissa should have given you some
Yeah, I
notes.
got that, I was gonna do that after.
You have to do all the waivers first. We can't grant conditional plan approval until all the waivers are
All
granted.
right, see, learning every time, here we go. Don't forget what I just said, I'll say it again later. Okay, motion's needed to amend the agenda to take action on waivers requested by the Highlands, and I presume there's no easy way to do this, we have to go through each one individually.
I think you could approve all of them, but we need to list them,
Articulate the purpose.
right, but
Okay.
then the motion could be for all of them.
Okay, there were a number of motions, on the table, any public comment first? Hearing none.
Okay.
We're off to the races. Waiver for, from subdivision land development ordinance as to preliminary and final submission. Two, waiver from the subdivision land development ordinance architectural scale requirements. Number three, waiver from subdivision land development ordinance tract boundary and right-of-way monument marker requirements. Number four, waiver of subdivision land development ordinance, that's the separation between street intersection requirements. Number five, a motion waiver from subdivision land development ordinance as to cleared site triangle requirements. A motion for waiver from the subdivision land development ordinance as to traffic impact study requirements. Oops, better not read this one. Approving $11,500 for road traffic impact study. Read about that one, we'll get back to it.
Yeah, we're waiving that
Right.
on the condition of receipt of the funds.
All right, next, waiver from the subdivision land development ordinance as to the impact study requirements. A waiver from the subdivision land development ordinance as to vertical curb and sidewalks along both sides requirement for Gray Circle and Galesong Drive. And a motion that, needed to approve, deny granting the Highlands a waiver from the stormwater management ordinance as to the inlets placed along curved portion of curbing within intersections. And finally, with respect to the Highlands, a motion to table approve and grant the Highlands conditional final plan approval subject to all review comments in McCarthy's engineering review letter dated January 27, 2022. Okay, we have a motion.
Just so it's clear, the motions are to approve.
All the way.
Right, the motion would be to approve all the waivers conditioned upon the receipt of the payment for the traffic impact study waiver.
We have a motion, a second?
Second?
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, we need a motion, needed to table, approve, or deny granting 1139 Lehigh Avenue a waiver from section.
We haven't approved the plan yet. We gotta go back to the original agenda.
Additional approval. What you started with, Ron,
Yeah, the one you said we should forget, we should go back
you
again.
forgot.
Conditional.
Motion to, table, approve, or deny granting conditional final plan approval for the Highlands from the land development plan and accept the fees of $11,500 for legal traffic study.
What's the motion is to approve.
Yeah. do we need a-
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion approved.
Now I'm going to Lehigh Avenue.
Now go to Lehigh.
Motion is needed to table, approve, or deny granting 1139 Lehigh Avenue a waiver for section 305 and 308 of the stormwater management ordinance.
And this one should be
Table.
tabled.
Yeah, table. Yeah, table.
Motion to table.
Yeah.
We have a motion to table.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Right.
the ayes have it, the table 1139 Lehigh Avenue.
The next one should be a motion to approve, deny, or amend the planning report.
So do you motion to approve?
Okay, Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So be it. Acting Borough Managers Report, Michelle.
I'm respectfully requesting a motion to change the time for future personnel committee meetings from 8 AM to 11 AM.
Are there any comments on that?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. All those in favor of changing the personnel committee meeting times from 8 AM to 11 AM? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the time has changed.
Respectfully requesting a motion to amend the agenda under the acting borough manager's report to add acceptance and acknowledgement of the Western Berks Water Authority meeting minutes of January 10th. Those are normally included in your council packets and are part of my report. They were only received after council packets went out.
So moved. Second.
A motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And I'd also respectfully request a motion to amend the agenda to review and discuss resolution 2022-07, which sets the tax rate for the year 2022, also not included under my manager's report, so you would need a motion to amend the agenda to discuss that and then adopt it.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just as a side note to that, this is normally approved, I should say adopted in December as part of the various other year-end documents. Obviously, it was not, and it needs to be formally adopted, so again, respectfully requesting a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Noting that it's a resolution with no tax increase.
Correct, otherwise it would be an ordinance.
Right. Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
As a reminder, Borough Hall will be closed on Monday, February 21st in observance of President's Day, and otherwise that is all I have for my report.
Anybody have any questions for Michelle?
Is that personnel committee change effective for next week?
Yes,
Okay, is that gonna be advertised
yes,
for the whole year?
yes.
Alrighty, I'll entertain a motion to accept the Borough Manager's report.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, in your packet you have the Treasurer's Statement of Operations, the General Fund, Bureau of Water, Sewer Fund, Highway Aid, Refuge and Recycling Fund, and the Road Tax Fund. And anybody have any comments on the Treasurer's Statement? Okay. If not, entertain a motion to accept the Treasurer's Statement of Operations.
So moved.
Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, the accounts payable fund, general fund, Bureau of Water, sewer fund, refuge, recycling fund. Those reports, any questions on those? Entertain a motion to approve that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Tax collector's report, Betsy.
You got it.
That's gonna move on.
Okay.
Let's wrap it up.
Okay, you've all seen the tax collector's report. Any questions?
The bills will be coming out in 3 weeks.
Well, entertain a motion.
Motion.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, is there any old business to be brought before council this evening? Any new business to be brought before council? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain public comment on non-agenda items.
I have a couple of words. I'm sorry, everybody, I guess, is ready to go home. I've commented several times in past weeks about documents included with the agendas and the need to have documents that are discussed to be attached to the agenda. It stands to reason that you cannot participate at a meeting or a committee or whatever and have any meaningful contribution if you don't know what's been talking about. I have many examples. Just today we had the Civil Service Committee and we were talking, there were a discussion about changes to the, what was that called? I forgot. The police department regulations. And the regulations were not attached. That is a public document that and eventually it will be attached anyway in the council packet or available publicly. So there is no harm in having that ahead of time. Now I asked Mr. Becker and he said, well, this is all we are required by law. And my appeal to you is let's move beyond that. Let's not do just what's required by law, let's do what makes sense. In order for the people to participate, they need to know what the discussion is about. Just the title doesn't help. And I think that concludes it. Just a quick comment on the deer. I don't know, I'm not no expert in this, but I was thinking, is it possible to create a fund? I agree that, you know, that all taxpayers in Wyomissing should not, you know, a lot of people are not affected by this. So creating a fund of some sort in which people interested can contribute, I think, and of course the whole thing would be managed by the borough. Maybe that would alleviate and, you know, the problem that was discussed. It's just a suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to introduce one thing as you all study what you want to do going forward in terms of the program. And by the way, I think you made the right decision in terms of let's look at the issue further and think of it comprehensively and come up with a plan. And maybe at the end of the day you decide we're doing nothing, but at least you will have looked at each option, weighed the pros and cons. But Nolde Forest, I don't know how many of you go to Nolde Forest to hike or walk back there, but they have run a daily deer hunt before 9 a.m. and after 3 p.m. on weekdays since September to the end of January. So to my knowledge, there were no PETA demonstrations, there were no blockades of 625, there were no hikers, you know, shot by bow hunters through the process. So it's interesting to me that a state-run game land, or basically parkland, saw the need to implement a process to control their deer herd, to protect that wildlife and protect that the park system itself, the vegetation. If you read the sign they have posted there, that's their reasoning why, is we have to make sure this ecosystem stays healthy for the long term. And if we don't take action against the deer, that's not going to happen. So I think there's local precedent to take action. I know you mentioned the Charles Evans situation. It's a little different, but here's a public space people are using every day where there's a controlled process that did not create a tsunami of negative publicity for the part involved. I don't disagree with you that there will be some who will protest or be upset, or you will get complaints by it, but I guess I just ask you to weigh the greater good for the community, public safety, health of the park system, and the effect it is having on, admittedly, a narrow base of your population. But we are taxpayers, we are voters. I could turn this discussion around and say, I saw the funds you have in there for sewer and water. We don't have sewer and water on High Road. So I guess the next thing we're gonna do is band together and petition that we be exempt from having to contribute tax dollars to projects that we don't benefit from. That's never been our position, and I think we recognize as being part of the community, there's things that you pay for that you don't benefit, but then you expect government to take care of your needs when you have an issue. And I think that's part of the greater good of civic responsibility. So I hope we don't get on a narrow discussion of what those people live on nice houses, there's only a few of them. You know, they can afford to replace their landscaping, it's their problem, not our problem. Hey, come on. We're all part of the same community. So I just ask that that be considered as you weigh whatever course of action you're going to take in the future.
Okay, thank you, Ted.
Yep.
Are there any other public comments?
Yes, what I had wanted to say, Bill, earlier is, as you discussed in the debate over at the library, technically, this is not our problem. I'm worried about the liability issues once you take it on, because once you take it on, we'll never be able to back out again if something happens to say, well, in 2022, you did a call or you did all this stuff to get rid of the deer, well, now they're back, and it's now up to us. That's the only thing I'm concerned about as a resident paying for all this.
Thank you.
And by the way, I'm on 1200 Delaware Avenue, and I had deer, I have the pictures.
Thank you. Any other comments to be brought before council this evening? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. With motion second. All those in favor? Okay, good. Thank you all.